Okay, so we're ready to look at the second half of Module 3. If we take a peek at our learning plan here in Canvas, we're going to notice that this learning plan 3 is divided into two chapters, Chapter 11 and Chapter 6. So the last time we were together, we did look at Chapter 11, and that was looking at revolves and mirrors and circular patterns. Okay, so we had parts that we did a tutorial on, but then also ones that we practiced with. So that's the first part of this module. The second part of the module is looking at Chapter 6 here. And this is going to be just using some additional construction tools and things that we haven't quite seen yet, but still creating some models as well. You'll notice that the tutorials that we are going to have for our practice problems are going to be the pulley that we did back in Chapter 11, but now we're going to be doing a gasket here in Chapter 6. And then the second half of the assignment 3 and the second problem for our practice problems are going to be associated with Chapter 6. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go, because I got to open my camera here, I'm going to go underneath my camera, and we are going to be looking at the beginning of Chapter 6 here. So let me get this going. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So, so you're going to notice here in Chapter 6, we're going to be creating this gasket, and how we're going to be creating it, and something that's going to be new here is we are going to go ahead and we're going to create the outside perimeter of this gasket, but then we're going to be using a function called offset to actually offset that distance instead of like redrawing it twice, you know, to create it. So there's kind of a nice little, if you would, automation that that we can do for that. So we're going to be focusing on that. I'm going to turn the page here. And how we're going to model this the first time, we're actually going to model it twice. The first time we're going to model it is we're going to create a solid first. The gasket's only going to be 5 millimeters wide. And then we're going to create a cut or a cutout on the inside that we're going to offset from the original outside profile. Okay, so then we're gonna create that cutout. But then we're going to find out that there is another way that we can model this, and that's going to be with a thin feature. So we're going to actually see this done twice to get the same result. Okay, the first part of the tutorial here is really just opening up SolidWorks, getting things set up, and then just identifying that we are in metric units for this one. So pulling up that metric template that we had created, then we don't have to worry about going in and manually changing these items. Okay, so so as we look here, it's going to start the 2D sketch. Now, I am going to do the sketch a little bit differently than them. I think I don't know, they do a couple things here and it's a little hokey. So what I would like to do is, instead of worrying so much about how they create each one of these step by step, I'm going to peek ahead to, where is it? I'm going to peek ahead to 616. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our sketch to mimic what we see here. But I am going to tell you, I identified the origin right there on that corner. Okay, so that's what we're going to use to really kind of generate this outside sketch. And then we're going to continue on from here. So again, they do a step-by-step process, but I think it's a little bit roundabout, especially where you guys are at right now. I feel like you're ready to, let's just, you know, get our fully defined sketch and move on. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my SolidWorks, and we're going to use this to create our sketch. Okay. So, so we're going to do an extrude boss face. Even though this is a thin member, we still have to create that material, and we have to start by doing this extrude boss face. So I'm going to extrude boss face. I'm going to use the front plane, and then we're going to start sketching. Now, as I had said, I'm going to have that one corner is going to be my origin. So I'm actually going to start up here, go over, down, and back, and then that's going to be at that corner, and then I'm going to kind of continue. So I'm going to start with my line intentionally up and to the right. I'm going to go over and past, down and in line, and then I'm going to grab the origin at that point. I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to kind of pass over like right about there. Okay, and I'm going to stop at this point. Okay, so this is what I look like. And I've got my origin right at that corner. So I started basically there, came down, and then I stopped here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this circle, and then we're going to add the line to be tangent and at that endpoint. Okay, so I'm going to create my circle right about here. And I am going to overlap it with that first line that I had, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I am going to create a relation so that this point and this line are in line with one another. And if we look at our sketch here, we can see that happen. Okay, so the center of that circle or that arc is in line horizontally with that line. Go back to SolidWorks. I'm going to go to my add relation. And I am going to click on first, and really just the order doesn't matter, but I want to get the center of my circle and that horizontal line. And those are going to be coincident. They don't have horizontal, but they'll be coincident. So that means that these two will always be in line horizontally with one another. Okay. So I'm going to hit OK here. Now, if I click off of those and have them selected and I grab the center here, the only thing I can do, you're going to notice I can move this around, but you'll see that because of that relation that I added, that horizontal line is always going to stay in line with it. And that's what I want exactly to happen. I want that relationship. So I'm going to say OK there. Now you're going to notice that looks like when I'm further away that those are in line with one another, but I'm going to take this line right here and I'm going to grab, I'm going to grab that endpoint and I'm just going to move it so that it intersects and overlaps with my circle, because then I'm going to do, once I get my line in place over here, I'm going to trim that stuff away so I have perfect intersections. Okay. All right. So then I'm going to add the line from the endpoint down here, and then I'm going to go, line from the endpoint down here. And it's going to be, I'm going to go kind of close over here so that it creates a construction line for a tangent point. Okay. So right there. Now, if it doesn't do that for you, you can go ahead and add a relation of that arc to that line. Mine's already there. I'm not gonna click this, but if you need to do that, you can do that as well. So you want that tangent there and coincident. All right, so now what I'm ready to do is to trim away the parts that I don't need. And so I'm going to trim. I'm going to start in the middle here. I'm going to select, or I'm going to depress. I'm going to go over the top. I'm going to drag over the top of this one. And then I'm going to release once I get rid of all the parts that I don't want. Okay. And so now you should have a sketch that looks like this. Okay. And my origin, again, I stuck in that corner. If you put the origin on another corner, it's totally fine. But as we know, to get it fully defined, you have to be referencing the origin some way, somehow. Okay. All right. So now we're ready to start putting our dimensions on. So if we go back to the drawing on page 616, now we're going to add in the dimensions that we see here. So I'm just going to kind of use that, kind of march around and put those in place. So I'm going to start, I always like to start with the longest dimension. So I'm going to smart dimension from this line to the very end point right there. And this is going to be 180. Then I'm going to add in from the center of my circle to that left edge is 200. Go. See, it's kind of fun how, well, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's annoying the way that it changes things. And I'm going to add my radius here. It'll be 45. Then from the top down, it's going to be 120. From here, 50. Here, 45. And I think I'm fully defined. I have all my dimensions in place. And sure enough, I am fully defined down here. So I'll just wait a second for you guys to catch up to that. So you should have all the very same dimensions that they have on here, including being tangent and coincident at that point, and then also for your center to be coincident or horizontal to that horizontal line as well. Okay. There is a couple more features that we have to add here, and these are going to be the fillets. So on page 617, before we leave our sketch here, we're going to add sketch fillets to this. You could do this as a fillet feature. It really doesn't matter which way you do it. Honestly, I tend to like to do fillet features at the feature level, but on a thin part like this, I guess it makes sense to do it here in the sketch. So what we're going to do is we're going to be adding the fillets right here to the inside, outside, outside, and inside. So all of them are a radius of 20 millimeters. So we're going to add those 4 fillets. So if we go up to back to SolidWorks, still in the sketch mode, we're going to go to the sketch fillet. And something I realized today that I did not, when I was practicing this earlier today, I'm going to change my radius here to 20. But when you go over here, you can actually just click the point. I was always doing each feature, separately. So you can either click the interior point there where it comes together, or you can do the separate features. So by clicking on that point, it goes in place and it's going to give you that preview. But like I said, you can also select the feature, and it'll put it in like that as well. So both ways work for putting these fillets in. I don't know, I kind of like the point method. It's nice. So, so once you have all 4 of those in, you can just hit OK. And okay, and now we're still fully defined on our sketch, and it did all the extra relations that it needed to for the fillet, so you don't have to worry about that. But now we're ready to exit our sketch to extrude it the 5 millimeters. So I'm going to exit. I did go in on the extrude boss base, and now I'm going to do a blind extrusion. It's defaulting to 10, but I do want it to be 5 millimeters. So it's going to be a little shorter, and that looks good. Okay, there it is. And I am just going to rename this to be gasket profile. Okay. And actually, I'm gonna rename it one more time. I'm gonna do gasket outside profile. There we go. And we're gonna want to save this, right? So we're gonna do a save as, and you're gonna navigate to where you want this to be. So we are in module 3, and this is gonna be gasket tutorial. Okay. So if we go in our book, we are on page 618. Okay, so we've just gotten done here. We did our extrude, and at the very top here of 619, we're kind of got our finished current model. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create that offset. Okay. And there are a couple steps here. So do pay attention or follow along in the book to do this. Actually, ooh, that's right. They do this little section in here. We're not going to do that. So we're going to skip over from the top of 619. We're going to skip over to page 625. I'm sorry. They have you create manually the sketch using different forms. I'm not exactly sure why they do that. So I'm just going to skip over that, and we're going to resume here on page 625. So these are some of the things, like I said, that they're doing in here. And I guess they're nice, but I feel like they're not really all that valuable. So we're going to start here, and we're going to create this offset using that profile that we just created from the outside, because our gasket has the exact offset of 15 millimeter thickness off of the outside, and it's going to take that very same shape. So since the shape is already done, we want to use what we call the offset command to do this. So I'm going to go back to SolidWorks, and we are going to go into just the regular sketch mode. Okay. We're going to click on the tab for sketch first, then we're going to say that we want to sketch. And it's going to ask us for the plane or the face. So we're going to select that front face. Okay. So now we're on this front face. The next thing we're going to do, is we are simply going to select this plane right here. So we're just going to select this. And what happens is it selects the entire face. Okay. We want to convert those entities to be in our current sketch. So I'm going to convert the entities. And what happened here, I'm going to rotate mine. You're going to notice that this front edge here is nice and that dark black color. And what that means is now those are lines that are in our current sketch from the previous feature that we created. Okay. So I'm just going to look here. So you're selecting it one more time and then hitting convert, and then it automatically converts that whole profile for us. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use this offset command. So we're going to click on offset entities. All right. Now, a couple clicks that we're going to do here. Number one, we're going to change the 10 to 15. That's going to be the thickness that it's going to offset. We are also going to make sure that select chain is checked here. Okay. And then we're going to go over here and we're going to select on one of the lines on the outside. Now, you're going to notice what happens. When we do that, first of all, it offset it in the opposite direction than we wanted it to go. It went to the outside of our form instead of to the inside. So we simply go back over to the left-hand panel, and we are going to check reverse. All right, so now it's going to reverse that direction and put it on the inside now. And it's a direct, if you would, offset from what was there. Okay. It has a distance here of 15. And now all we have to do, if this looks good to us, we just hit the green OK. And now we have that profile in our sketch. Okay. Did everybody get that to work? All right. Good. All right, so now you'll notice that we're fully defined. We're fully defined because we used a fully defined sketch or a profile to offset to our new sketch, so it's going to be fully defined. So we can exit our sketch here, and now we've got sketch number 2. And sketch number 2, if we highlight it, it has the outside profile and the inside profile. Okay. So we're going to select on sketch number 2, and we're going to go to our features tab and over to the extruded cut. Okay. Because we want to cut out that middle part. So I'm going to click on that. Now, this is another kind of a nuance here. What's going to happen right now is it's going to use that space between the gasket to cut away. All right. So if I don't do this, but if I do a really quick blind cut, I'm going to cut this away. And now look at it, took away the part that I actually want to save. Right. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to do an undo on that. I'm going to reselect my sketch and go back into extrude cut. So we don't want that section, but what we want to happen is we're going to go down here to selected contours. We're going to arrow down, and right now it's using sketch 2, the full sketch. We want to select on sketch 2 and just delete it, get it out of there. Instead, we are going to select the inside portion here of that region. Okay. So you want this selected. It's going to turn like a purplish color. And then the other thing that you want to do is you just want to verify that it is going in the right direction to make the cut. And in this case, it is. Okay. Now, if we do the OK, you're going to notice that now it does the cut properly. Now, something I didn't do, I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to edit my feature. You can change this blind, just like we've done in the past, and it's a better option to really do a through all, just in case that 5 millimeters ever changes to a different depth. We always ensure that that middle part is going to go through. So do switch that to through all, and then hit OK. And now we've got our gasket going all the way through. So then I'm going to do a rename, and this is going to be interior cutouts, I guess. I don't know. There we go. All right, and we can do a file, save, and there we have our gasket. Okay. So any questions on that method at the moment? All right. So if we look at, we'll catch ourselves up to our tutorial. So again, we kind of skipped over those pages, and now we are on page 628, and here's our final gasket. Okay. Now there is an alternate method, so a second way to create this. Okay, a second way to create this. So it's nice that they put this in there. So this is using what they call the thin feature option in our extrude. Okay, so let's go see how that one works. So what we're going to do here is we are actually going to delete the interior cutout. Delete that. Okay, and all I did was I left clicked it and I hit the delete key on my keyboard. I'm going to get rid of as well sketch 2. I'm going to left click that, hit the delete key on my keyboard and confirm and say yes. So that's gone. And then I'm going to delete my outside profile feature. Delete, say okay. And all I'm going to be left with is my original sketch. You should only have sketch 1 left. And that's a fully defined sketch that we used, okay? And this is just the profile now. So you should be here. You should only have sketch 1. So you're just hitting that second feature, sketch 2, and then the first feature. You're going to hit delete for each one of those. So you should just have sketch 1 left. All right. Now what we're going to do is we are going to select that sketch. It's already fully defined, as we know. And in our feature tab, we're going to do the extrude boss base. Okay. Now we already have the thickness identified here. It remembers that 5 millimeters, but we are now going to click on thin feature. Look what happened. Okay. So what happened here is it added a distance of 10 millimeters, that thickness of the gasket. Now, what you want to play around with here is this. You want to check to make sure that it's on the right side. So if you have to, remember, we want our sketch, our original sketch, to be the outside. So we want it to be on the, so if you look at it and it gets smaller, that's the side you want to be on. Does that make sense? And then we need to change the thickness to 15 millimeters. So it should be a little bit thicker. Okay. So we actually are doing both the thickness there and this offset in this one command for the extrude, okay, as a thin feature. So it's kind of a shortcut. It is a shortcut. And we're gonna hit okay. And now we have the very same gasket again, but a different way to make it a more efficient, if you would. So we're gonna do a file save on that. And there you go. That's your second practice problem for module 3. Okay.